So it's not it's not going to be history making to have oh shit, it is. Look, Trump's already been charged for a crime. So that the seal has been broken on that. We have demonstrated that it is possible through the heroism of Alvin Bragg actually doing his job. I know, crazy. But let's be honest. The cover-up payments, which, yeah, they were lying to the American people. They were cheating to win an election. Yeah, okay. That's not the issue of greatest concern, though. The issue of greatest concern is, what do you call it? That one thing. Oh, yeah, the coup. Donald Trump participated in a coup. What we really need to see, frankly, is that being answered for. Now, I want to be clear. We already have an issue we're going to have to deal with, which is ensuring that this is handled quickly next time. Because right now, what we have shown potential traitors is that we're very hesitant to do anything to deal with traitors in our country. That's bad. We need harsh laws put in place over this. We possibly need another law enforcement organization created to deal with this. We need to make it clear that when these punks try this again, a SWAT team is going to burst through their windows, kick their teeth down their throat, and drag what's left of them into a cold, stony prison cell. That needs to be made crystal clear. Again, 2024 is important. Last couple of elections I have heard, this is the most important. It's all been true. They have all been the most important election in American history. They keep getting more important. Why is that? Because when we win the good guys, we don't secure our victory. We don't make the evil behavior illegal. We need to start doing that. Fortunately, with the laws that are on the books, it looks like Donald Trump's butt is going to get charged for his betrayal.
Last month, DA Willis told local law enforcement to be ready for heightened security this summer. She told them she would announce possible criminal indictments between July 11th and September 1st. Indictments she thought might provoke such significant public reaction that the indictments could be a threat to the court's safety and that of her legal team. Well, today, that timeline got even tighter. The New York Times was the first to report that Fani Willis has told most of her staff to plan to work remotely from the last week of July through the first 3 weeks of August. Most of the judges in the downtown Atlanta courthouse will apparently be away during the first week of August for a judicial conference. But Willis is asking those judges not to schedule any trials during the 2 weeks after that conference, the week starting on Monday, August 7th and Monday, August 14th. And why could that be? Office staff, stay home. Judges, stay home. Law enforcement, get ready. In other words, Fani Willis is planning to announce something so big between the end of July and the first 3 weeks of August that it poses a significant security threat to a significant number of people. Willis's office has been investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election in Georgia for more than 2 years now. And 2 days ago, we learned that yet another one of Trump's lawyers may be a target in that investigation. That followed reports that at least 9 of Trump's 16 fake electors from Georgia have.
Remember, over in France, a lawyer and a judge wrapped up in those charges. This is a pretty standard way for this kind of crime to go down. When people are this rich, you and I probably see lawyers as like fancy people. Like, oh, sir, well, how are you? Let me treat you like a fancy Dan. Let me hold that door for you, pull out that chair. You're a fancy person. These people, they see lawyers as working men. They see, Alina Habba, he views her as an employee. They are so much wealthier than us that to them, the idea of making a lawyer do a crime is nothing. They're like, yeah, of course, I'd have a henchman do my crimes for me. Yeah, that's what a lawyer is, a paid henchman. Just try to view it from their point of view, and it makes a lot more sense as to why all these lawyers are getting wrapped up in this stuff. It's because they're legal experts, and when these rich scumbags want to break the law, they hire a legal expert to help them get away with it.
Been granted immunity in the investigation, and they are cooperating with prosecutors. The rest of those fake electors, including the chairman of the Republican Party of Georgia, they presumably remain targets of the investigation. So Fani Willis appears to be casting a very wide net here, looking at not only the big fish, but all the little fish who could potentially flip and testify against others. But would indicting any of those targets, even America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, would that cause such a massive public backlash that you literally have to clear the streets and the courts for it? All of the signs here point to the architect of the big lie being held to account at some point between the end of July and the first 3 weeks of August. Mark your calendars. Joining us now are former U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, Michael Moore, and Katie Fang, host of the eponymous Katie Fang Show right here on MSNBC. Katie, let me start with you.
Sure.
It's a delight to see you in person.
Same here.
Nobody is misreading this, right? The arrows, it's a neon sign rather than an arrow, points to a Donald Trump indictment between the end of July and the first 3 weeks of August. Is that right?
Remember the forewoman from the special grand jury. Yes. What did she say? It's not rocket science. So if it's not rocket science, then you're not going to be shocked, is what she says. I guess we're not going to be shocked.
I mean, the forewoman aside, and I think there was a lot of psychology going on with that forewoman.
Sure.
This is a very big fish in the sea of fishes in and around the attempts to undermine the results of the 2020 election. Donald Trump is a big deal if that is, in fact, what is happening. From the sort of breadcrumbs that we have gotten in recent weeks from the fake electors who now have immunity deals with prosecutors and are cooperating, the lawyers that have been implicated, just the movement and momentum that we are seeing, what is your expectation here? And how potentially damning is it that you have these cooperating witnesses?
Before she answers, just pay attention to one thing, at least to view this as interesting in the way I did. Why do we know this? Why do we know all this motion? Why is it being telegraphed so much? I think there's a very good reason.
So it's reading tea leaves, as you said.
Yeah.
But I do think that reasonable prosecutors would say that in light of the background of Fani Willis being an expert in RICO and racketeering prosecutions, and because we've seen a wide net cast, a lot of people forget this has been going on for 2 years.
Yeah.
The investigation has had 2 years to be able to grow. It is only lately that you've seen an escalation and yet a pullback. The pullback being the immunity deals that were offered with 8 of the 16 fake electors that participated in that December 2020 meeting wherein they refused to certify the Biden, win. I think you see the possibility that, if we're going to temper expectations, which we should do when we're lawyers, it should be Donald Trump, right? But it could also mean Mark Meadows, who was on that famous phone call to Brad Raffensperger, find me 11,780 votes. It could go as high as Mark Meadows, right? But the reality is, if you have a puppeteer, if you have somebody who set it all in motion, like any good racketeering prosecution, it's going to be the highest guy on the totem pole, and that's Donald Trump. The immunity deals in and of themselves are kind of big flags for us to be looking at, and yet they're just part of the process. They're just a part of how you tee up an investigation and a prosecution. But knowing her background, her being Fani Willis, knowing that we're asking for the security, it's kind of a foregone conclusion, in my opinion. You're going to see Donald Trump on that indictment.
Okay. Here's my thought. Here's why I think we can see the tea leaves to read them. It might cause people to act up if all of a sudden, out of nowhere, from their perspective, Donald Trump is charged in the coup. However, if they are given weeks and months to get used to the idea that Fani Willis is planning to charge Donald Trump, she all but says it. This is time for them to adjust to the idea that we're going to have a court case about this. And it's that simple. Yeah, she is trying to, I think, communicate to lefties, look, I'm doing the work. You're right to be concerned that this work isn't getting done. Not everybody is doing the work they should, but I am. Yes, I think to a degree she's communicating that. And she's right to, by the way. I'm so annoyed by people that have dared to criticize a law enforcement official of any sort. Justice Department, I guess. Somebody in charge of representing the law in the United States. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Anybody who would dare criticize them for reassuring us that they're doing their job. Of course we need reassurance that they are, because they haven't. It's 2023, and this coup is still not dealt with. That's a huge problem. Yes, they should be purple-faced, tears in their eyes, on their knees, begging us for forgiveness for not having dealt with this already, for not having the conviction done. Gavel fall. Yes, she's right for that. But I also think she is telegraphing this for the benefit of people that are going to be just shocked that Donald Trump is actually being considered for this coup. Right now in the United States, I talk about these people not understanding right and wrong without consequences. Case in point, there's people in the United States that believe Donald Trump is the president. Right now, he's the acting shadow president. Why do they believe that? It's an explanation. It's a fairy tale explanation for how we could exist in the state that we do. Because it can't, what you and I have been saying, Donald Trump did it, Donald Trump did a coup, it can't be true from their perspective. Because he's a free man. So, they're going to need, or at least they're not going to need anything. Their opinion, frankly, shouldn't affect the rollout of this, but they will benefit from the foreknowledge that this is likely. And that's why I think we are seeing all of this information. I think yes, partially for our benefit, but mostly so that America can brace itself, the good and bad of it.
Michael, you're a creature of Georgia. The requests that are being made from the DA's office in terms of the courts clearing their schedules, the remote work for the prosecutors in her office, the security concerns in this very specific window of time. Have you ever seen anything like this in your time as an attorney?
I have not. I'm glad to be with you both. I do think this is just odd. It's just a little weird to do this. I mean, to be honest with you, you talk about hooking the big fish. I mean, most of the time if you go hook the big fish, you don't shout about it on top of the water with a megaphone. And so that seems
odd from whose perspective, though? And odd in what way? What are you trying to accomplish? What is she trying to accomplish by doing these things? They bring up a good point. In notifying the courts, how much do you, I'm not sure if they said it yet, they say it eventually. How much foreknowledge do they need? More or less than they've received. So why did they receive more than they need? Because they're not trying to make it a secret. Because they're not at the point yet where they're going to announce everything. But they're telling you, Bonnie Willis and her crew, they're telling you, this is coming. Be ready for it. Everybody who needs to be ready for it, be ready for it.
To be sort of what she's doing here. A lot of these arrangements could have been handled privately and quietly. I mean, the district attorney's office itself is not very far from the chief judge's office, and you can walk down there and sit down and say, this is what's fixing to happen. Can you call the judges together and, let them know what's going on, or we're going to be appearing before the grand jury. You can talk to the head of security. You can talk to the police chief. You don't have to do all this by way of some kind of public announcement. So it is strange, and it tells me basically that she's conscious of the fact that she needs to produce after 2 years of investigation. And I think that she's producing in the public eye so they could see that she's doing that she hadn't wasted time and money on it. And I think you're going to see Trump indicted. I don't think there's any possible way that she's going to now get around that after all this sort of unnecessary fanfare. I mean, there's some value to a prosecutor sort of coming in under the cloak of darkness and nabbing your man, so to speak, and running in with an indictment that was kept very quiet, but was returned by a grand jury and announcing it in public the next day. I mean, there's a lot of value to that. So it sounds like she's looking at a big RICO case. It sounds like she's been weaving this net, to try to circle up all the fish in the pond. Again, sometimes the bigger the net you weave, the more likely you are to tangle yourself up in it. So there's some pros and cons to doing it that way. But wouldn't be surprised to see an indictment.
Michael, that's a really good point. I mean, just the style of the wind-up, if you will, to use a baseball metaphor, is radically different than Katie, what we've seen from Jack Smith, right?
Yeah, and Michael makes an exceptional point here. There is a pending motion that has been filed by Donald Trump that has not been ruled on yet. And I actually have the state's response that was just filed on May 15th. And what Trump is saying, and another one of those fake electors is saying, is, look, this is so unusual. This entire special grand jury looks like it's already biased and tainted. And this whole process seems to already be skewed. And then to Michael's point, the more unusual it is, that feeds into the narrative of Donald Trump that this is just a witch hunt. This is just the politicization of a law enforcement arm. And so if you're going to have this much of a preview of what that movie is, it better be a blockbuster.
Right.
And to Michael's point, it hopefully is a blockbuster because everyone should be held accountable. We've heard Fonnie Willis say, no one is above the law. We've heard many prosecutors and DAs say that. And if it's true, then Donald Trump should also be on an indictment.
We've been waiting for way too long for this. So it came down to local prosecutors. It came down to local officials to get this guy. We have corruption at a national level. The fact that Merrick Garland was unwilling or unable to get as far as these others have tells us that we need an overhaul of federal law enforcement. Remember, Republicans cannot help but list out the prescription for dealing with them. What are they talking about now? They're talking about overhauling federal investigations, overhauling the federal law enforcement. They're right. We do need to. They're right. This will have to be accomplished in 2024 with the way we vote. Leading up to that vote, so for the rest of this year and most of 2024, we need to make it clear why it's happening, why it's going to happen. We got to be like Babe Ruth, pointing to where we're going to knock that baseball. And then we got to knock it there. But take heart in the fact that we have these local officials who are saving us. Fani Willis has earned her spot in the history books, assuming she goes through with this. She and Alvin Bragg may be the two people who can be most credited with the survival of the United States if it survives. It's Salty Saturday, but folks, I'm feeling great. I think we're all tired. We're all sick of dealing with the same things over and over again. I'm telling you here and now, while these things are not going away, the way in which they're talked about is about to change fundamentally. The conversation we're about to start having with Republicans, with MAGA voters, is going to go from, is he a good person or a bad person? Is he trying to help you or is he trying to hurt you? It's going to go from that to, is he guilty or not guilty? And to settle those conversations, it's not going to be, well, what did your politicians say? What did your news service say? It's going to be, what is the evidence? We know what we're going to see. They're going to be surprised by what they see. Take heart in the fact that you're about to have a bunch of very easy, very fun political debates with people that have been in a cult and are about to start realizing it. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say.